Did you know that this guy is voiced by the J. Jonah Jameson actor? And not only that, but there are a ton of other Easter eggs surrounding this character. My goal is to prepare everyone for the new seasons of Phineas and Ferb that are coming up by analyzing all the previous episodes. I'm Mitchell, and welcome back to Channel 626. This is a breakdown of Phineas and Ferb, Toy to the World. I'm so excited to share with you what I found in this episode, so let's get right into it. Okay, we start off with a commercial for Shimmy Jimmy by the Hardy Hard Toy Company. The commercial looks like fun, but what the toy actually does and what the marketing suggests it does are completely different. It's clear that this was basically 99% advertising and 1% substance. And unfortunately, we've all seen commercials like this where they make the toy look super cool, but in reality, it's just kind of lame. Well, that's exactly what Candace is dealing with in her very first job, working at the Hardy Hard Toy Shop in the mall. And during the very first minute of her very first job, she takes a personal call. Nice. She tells Stacy that Jeremy is working right across from her, which seems like a major positive until they make her wear a monkey hat, and then Jeremy sees her and she basically dies of embarrassment. And this is actually a common thread throughout the episode, so we'll come back to it. Unfortunately for Candace, her first customers are her brothers, and she has to give them the standard greeting.
Welcome to the Hardy Hard Toy Store. Ha 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 ha.
But that's not all. She also gives them their big idea for the day.
Oh, like you geniuses can make a better toy.
And thus the day truly begins with Candace giving the boys their big idea. So they actually start by brainstorming in the hardware store. And in the background, if you listen closely, you can hear the Gucci Gucci Goo song.
Ow, chicka bow wow, that's what my baby said.
Say, where's Perry?
Phineas then says, okay then, what we need is a toy so stupidly simple, so basically bland, so idiotic that it can do absolutely anything. And while he's saying this, we can see Ferb building something in the background. It's not clear at first what he's doing because we hear a drill and hear a hammer and see flames and paint splatters. But in hindsight, those paint splatters are the exact same teal color that the Perry toy is going to be later on. And we don't actually end up seeing the toy until they're presenting it to the Hardy Hard Toy Company. Inside that company boardroom, we hear executives talking about how sales are falling because kids just aren't as interested in climbing toys anymore, which is all that they manufacture. And can you blame the kids? Those toys are super lame. And they name off a bunch of these old toys, including Ascendin Brendan, which looks a lot like King Kong climbing up a building. But Phineas and Ferb are there to save the day with the Perry in action figure. And when they say the toy does nothing, the boss's interest is piqued, saying,
Just a minute. We could promise the moon without really promising anything. Ooh, I love it.
And this is a typical businessman response, but I know from personal corporate experience that this is exactly how executives do respond to things like this. There are a bunch of yes men and yes women around the table who pitch in saying, brilliant, I loved it from the beginning before I even heard it. And only one person speaks his mind, saying,
Are you all crazy? It's just a stupid block of wood, and it doesn't do anything!
But just then, the boss man drops him down a trap door and replaces him with another yes man, who immediately says,
I love it. What are we talking about?
Okay, obviously this is an exaggeration, but it is what working in corporate America can feel like sometimes. A bunch of people who are only concerned about their own careers and will say anything to please their boss. And when there is a rare employee who's willing to speak up and offer a disagreement, they are literally, or more likely functionally, replaced. Now, I will say this is getting a lot better, but just traditionally, that's how business has been done. And I'm sorry to keep harping on it, but the humor in this episode is basically a lot of just making fun of corporate workspaces. Because the boss then continues with a shrewd bit of business.
I'll put both of you in charge and double your salaries. What do you say?
Actually, we've never made a salary.
Well, then I'll triple it.
This is exactly what it feels like to have your boss say a bunch of fancy words, which makes it sound like employees are getting awesome benefits. Like, I'll triple your salary. But in reality, they amount to basically nothing. And then the kids are hit with another dose of corporate reality where they show up at the factory, which is completely devoid of any sort of joy or fun. Luckily, Phineas and Ferb, however, give it a complete makeover. Look, we've already seen it in this episode, and we're going to see it a lot more, but I'm going to take a moment here to point out the theme. In every aspect, Phineas and Ferb represent the opposite of this corporation, which is supposed to be making toys for kids to have fun. But the company has no creativity of themselves. They keep making the same toy over and over again with different skins. Where Phineas and Ferb, on the other hand, are the ultimate creators. Phineas and Ferb don't care about getting paid. They're doing it for the good of the world and to have fun on a summer day. while the company's first thought is just profit and salary. Look, I'm an entrepreneur at heart and I have 2 business degrees. I do not think business are bad or evil in any way. And if a corporation doesn't make a profit, then they cease to exist. And so I'm not going to get into all the politics and theory behind business, but I'll just leave it at this. Lots of companies will say one thing, but then treat their customers and their employees in a completely different way. Phineas and Ferb represent the opposite of that. Put another way, corporations are a platypus.
Platypus is a metaphor for whatever's keeping you down. Like corporations are a platypus.
And this theme continues throughout the entire episode, and I'll point it out when it does, but I'll get off my soapbox now. And this is the next example of it. When the factory goes from producing exhaust and pollution to bubbles, it's a visual metaphor for how corporations should prioritize environmental impact. And while this factory transformation is taking place, the Quirky Worky song plays in the background, and it's just one of my favorites. This employee who dropped down from the ceiling into the boardroom must be in marketing because he has lots of ideas on how to advertise this toy. But Phineas and Ferb aren't having any of it. They don't want any false advertising. Kids should be able to use the toy for whatever they want. This is in stark contrast to the commercial at the beginning of the episode, which made the toy look way cooler than it actually was. Phineas and Ferb again take an opposite approach, allowing the product's quality to speak for itself. And surely you noticed how the factory now looks like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, which helps explain this random scene.
We are the Badinkadinks! You set us free when you remodeled the factory. We've been trapped in the basement for years.
The Badinkadinks are a clear reference to the Oompa Loompas in Willy Wonka. And their story about being trapped in the basement reminds me of the Undergrounders from Milo Murphy's Law, who themselves got trapped underground while working on a subway track. Meanwhile, Candace is forced to wear a huge platypus costume to promote the Perry in Action figure. This is very similar. In fact, it might actually be the exact same costume that she wears in Perry Lays an Egg. And I love this classic Candace joke.
You look like number 1.
I feel like number 2.
Unfortunately for her, however, Jeremy saw her and thought she was a guy. Just then, Phineas and Ferb walk by in the mall being interviewed about their creation. That sparks Candace's fury, so she calls her mom to bust the boys, but her mom's waiting in an impossibly long returns line, which is oh so relatable. In line with Linda are a mom with 2 kids, an old man holding a bag, a guy with a pig and a wheelbarrow, someone returning a microwave, someone returning a goldfish, a little lady wheeling a fridge on a dolly, a basketball player, a guy who looks like he just got out of the bath, a lady in bunny slippers with a tropical bird on her shoulder, this random guy, a farmer holding a chicken, a clown holding hands with a monkey, and a guy with a normal looking box. And anyone who's waited in a long returns line has felt like they're part of a clown show, just like this is. We also see a commercial for the Perry in Action figure, which is just a picture of the toy with a bunch of different backgrounds. However, a few of those backgrounds are recognizable, so let's run through them real fast. A cowboy in the West from The Magnificent Few, a stage with lights from Flopstars, ice fishing from Swinter, Phineas and Ferb's backyard, Phineas and Ferb's bedroom, the ski lodge from Swinter, the slushy dog at Mount Rushmore from Candace Loses Her Head, and an American flag. Back in the Hardy Heart Company building, the boss asks,
How does everyone like my new suit?
to which everyone responds, excellent, fantastic. Have you lost weight? You look really good. But here again is another example of Phineas and Ferb contrasting the toxic workplace culture, where Ferb's the only one to point out the obvious.
That man isn't wearing any clothes.
This whole exchange is a reference to the famous folktale, The Emperor's New Clothes.
Oh, yeah. It's all coming together.
No, not that. New clothes, not new groove. Where a wealthy emperor is tricked into buying clothes that's supposedly woven from fabric that's so fine that it's invisible to anyone who's stupid. Of course, he's the one being stupid because the clothes don't actually exist. But everyone's so scared of this emperor's power that no one's willing to tell him that he's not wearing any clothes. Okay, back to the episode, where the boss, whose name is JB, by the way, forgets Ferb's name and asks if the boys have another idea because they have their whole career ahead of them. But Phineas and Ferb say they're going home for dinner to eat some fried chicken. Another lesson in valuing family over career. Alright, let's hit a few notes on the Hardy Heart Toy Company. The boss, JB, is played by J.K. Simmons, which is probably why he goes by a 2-letter initial starting with the letter J. You'll recognize J.K. Simmons from the Spider-Man movies where he plays J. Jonah Jameson, who likewise has a J name and has a similar temperament to JB in this episode.
Thank you for what? Standing there? The planetarium tomorrow night, 8 o'clock.
Number 2, the logo of the hyena looks a lot like the design of the hyena agent in the Alka Files episode. And number 3, the company name Hardy Heart Toys could be a reference to Hardy Har Har, the classic Hanna-Barbera hyena character. Okay, let's check in with Perry, before we finish off Phineas and Ferb's storyline. Way back in the hardware store, he entered his lair by pulling on a hook. Monogram briefs him by saying that Doofenshmirtz is stealing all the bricks in the tri-state area, leading to
Animals are rioting. Convicts are escaping from the zoo.
which is an obvious mix-up because the pictures show convicts rioting and animals escaping from the zoo. And then Perry rides a gyrocopter out of there, just like Little Nelly from the James Bond movie, You Only Live Twice, which is just one of several James Bond references in the Perry the Platypus character. Okay, so Doofenshmirtz has been collecting up bricks so that he can build a wall around the tri-state area and then put up toll booths. And his scale model here kind of reminds me of Gotham City from the Dark Knight trilogy. But Perry quickly realizes that his trap doesn't have any mortar between the bricks, so he easily escapes and chases Doofenshmirtz out of the building. And Doof must not be a sports fan because he clearly jinxes himself when he says, "You can't stop me, Perry the Platypus. You couldn't stop me with 1,000,000,000 Perry the Platypuses." When right then he falls through the roof into the factory, surrounded by what probably felt like 1,000,000,000 Perry the Platypuses. And even though Doof isn't a sports fan from this comment, this guy clearly is.
So did you see the game on Saturday?
Yeah, real nail biter.
Perry ends up giving up the chase because he can't find Doofenshmirtz, but runs right into Phineas and Ferb while he's still wearing his secret agent hat. Luckily, their marketing guy had pitched them a secret agent angle earlier, and so they think this is just some of the advertising materials. Phew, that was a close call. And somehow Doofenshmirtz ended up on a box on a barge in the ocean. He yells out,
I hope I'm not on a boat because I get seasick.
Okay, now back to the toy company. JB asks his employees for a new toy idea, and someone suggests a brick, which they found in their office, likely tied to Doofenshmirtz's plot. We then cut to a commercial for the new brick toy, which, fair warning, is 100% gonna get stuck in your head.
It's fun.
Phineas and Ferb are not impressed at all as they eat their fried chicken and watch the new commercial. And the brick commercial is strikingly similar to the log commercial in the Red and Stumpy show. And then in the post-credit scene, Candace is now wearing a brick costume. But Jeremy is too smooth to make her feel embarrassed again. He wins some serious brownie points with this line.
Hey Candace, the things they make us wear, huh? At least you don't have a weenie on your head.
He understands me.
Okay, one last thing for anyone who might not have caught it. The title of this episode was Toy to the World, which is a play on the famous Christmas song Joy to the World, and Christmas is often associated with toys. Okay, let's hit the running gags now.
I know what we're doing today.
Hold on there. Aren't you a bit young to be toy designers?
Well, I don't think so.
That man isn't wearing any clothes.
It does absolutely nothing.
Say, where's Perry?
Ah, there you are, Agent P.
Thank you so much for joining me on this breakdown. They're currently developing new seasons of Phineas and Ferb, and I could not be more excited. So if you want to be fully prepared to appreciate those new episodes, make sure to check out my other breakdown videos of previous Phineas and Ferb episodes. And subscribe so you don't miss any future analyses. And always remember, there's no platypus controlling you.
There's no platypus controlling me.
Well, it counts.